These days, there are a lot of people who think that Zionism is awful. In 1975, the UN said Zionism is racism. And today, there are a lot of people who think that Jews don't have a right to a national movement. Well, I don't think that, and maybe you don't think that. Let's talk about why. I'm Professor Stephen M. Cohen, Research Professor of Jewish Social Policy at the Hebrew Union College Jewish Institute of Religion. And I'm here to talk to you today about Zionism. As I understand Zionism, and I've studied it, and by the way, I'm an American Jew who made Aliyah, who moved to Israel in 1992. I spend two-thirds of my time now in America, a third of my time in Israel, but I regard myself as a Zionist, and I have since I was a teenager. Zionism is the national liberation movement of the Jewish people. National liberation movement. First of all, Zionism says that, you know what? We're a nation. We're not just a religion. We're not a faith. Those who think that we're a religion are influenced by Western, frankly, American conceptions of what it means to be Jewish. But even in America, and certainly all around the world, Jews regard themselves as a people, or in Greek, an ethnos, which is a people, or in Hebrew, as Am Yisrael, as the people of Israel. And as such, we're really a national-like group. I'm not sure if we want to use the word nation. I do, maybe you don't. But we're a national-like group that has a religion. And let's be honest, we're about the most secular religious groups in America. We're about as religious as our unchurched Christians. So we're a very strong group, but clearly we're strong because of our religion. We're strong because we see ourselves as a nation. And as a nation, let's get to the second part, national liberation movement, we have been oppressed. We have been without our land. We have been in foreign countries. We've been subject to lots and lots of hatred, lots and lots of anti-Semitism. And in the 30s and then eventually in the 40s, we suffered. And there are hardly any Jews who don't have relatives who suffered or were killed in the Holocaust because our nation was despised in Europe because the Nazis were able to marshal their forces and other anti-Semitic forces throughout Europe to try to destroy us. But well before that, there was a movement that thought, you know what? The world can never accept the Jewish nation. The world needs to see the Jews as a normal nation. And a normal nation lives on its own land with its own culture and its own language. And that's really how the Zionist movement started. It had early thinkers in the 1860s, maybe 1840s. It had its first National Congress in 1897, and then started a national movement to bring Jews back to the land of Israel and to found a national homeland in Israel, which would eventually form into a state. And that's how we have a national liberation movement. Now, like all movements, we had all kinds of Zionisms. We had Herzlian Zionism, which, and here I'm reducing dozens of speeches, hundreds of pages to a few sentences, so Theodor Herzl, please, I apologize. But basically, Herzl wanted Jews to be normal, to assimilate into the world. The world wouldn't let that happen. And he said, we'll found this kind of European-like country in Israel. There were others, like Ahad Ha'am, who said, not so sure. We should have a spiritual center, but not necessarily a state. And then we had many, in fact, the mainstream Zionists were socialists. David Ben-Gurion, who became Prime Minister of Israel, was the leader of that party and that faction, who wanted to found a social democratic Jewish state. And actually, he and his forebears succeeded. In addition, there was another movement, a minority movement, that was more militant and believed that Jews should adopt a much more militant posture towards the British and the Arabs. And that movement was supported and founded by a famous thinker, Zev Jabotinsky of Odessa. But nevertheless, Zionism had its differences, and it's changed over time. Actually, not to be incomplete, the other major portion of Zionism were the religious Zionists, who have become actually even more important. So we have the religious Zionists, the social democratic Zionists, the nationalists, or the more right-wing Zionists. They all were part of this larger Zionist movement. Now, that movement, like every other movement, not only has diversity, but it has good points and weak points. It made for wonderful achievements. It made some horrible mistakes, let's be honest. We may disagree about what the achievements are and what the mistakes are, but there's no question that Zionism and Israelis made those mistakes. But one thing that I think all Zionists agree on are these three principles. One, Jews are a nation. Two, we have to be liberated by having our own homeland, and we have a right to that. We have a right to that homeland, like other groups have rights to their homeland. And three, we're a movement, which means we're something that incorporates lots of diversity and lots of differences. There are deep cultural differences, political differences, religious differences, and moral differences. And I want to assure you there are lots of Zionists with whom I deeply disagree, but I could recognize that they're Zionists, and I would hope they would say the same about me. And now what's left is for us to agree that Jews have a right to a homeland, but we also have a responsibility and a need to argue about the future of how we relate to the other nation that lives in that homeland, obviously the Palestinians. And that has been the major challenge to Zionism over the centuries, over the decades. How do we come to grips with and live with the Palestinians who also have rights to the same land that we see as our homeland? How do these two groups come together and survive together with dignity, respect, justice, and peace? That's the question that Zionism will have to face, and is facing right now, will have to face for years to come. And that's why this is such an exciting enterprise. And I invite you to be part of that Zionist enterprise with me and the millions of other Zionists all over the world. Thank you. I'm Dr. Stephen M. Cohen, Professor of Jewish Social Policy at the Hebrew Union College Jewish Institute of Religion. You can be in touch with me, I hope you are, through my email, which is steve34nyc@aol.com. Thank you very much. And one more thing. Whether you like this video or not, I think you found it stimulating. Certainly if you're looking at me right now. And if so, I think your friends and your family will find it stimulating. So do us both a favor. Do them a favor. Share this video with your friends and family.